Ferrari's attempt to win the championship has had a rough start. Red Bull beat them easily, and its lead car had to drop out of the race because its engine broke down, which happens all too often. After the first race of the season in Bahrain, the new team principal Fred Vasseur said he had to stick to what he said before the race, which was that Ferrari couldn't win or lose the championship in the first race. Their rough start to the new season didn't have any of the good things that happened last year when things went wrong. Even so, Ferrari has a secret weapon for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But first, let's see why Ferrari performed so badly in Bahrain. Even before the Bahrain Grand Prix, there was a bad sign for Leclerc and Ferrari. His power unit needed a new energy store, and after he qualified, he was in charge of the electronics. This shows that the battery pack had a problem that Ferrari needed to look into. Drivers can only use these parts twice per season, so Leclerc is already close to getting a grid penalty. Then there were signs that Leclerc's engine was giving out, and he would have to stop the race. Since Ferrari's main focus this winter has been on fixing problems with reliability, failing at the first obstacle is a big worry. Vasseur said that there was no sign of such a problem during dyno testing or preseason running, when the three Ferrari-powered teams went over 6,000 kilometers. Ferrari didn't have an easy way to fix the battery or engine problems, but this is a very common feeling. Last year, when Ferrari's first engine broke down in Spain, which hurt Leclerc's chances of winning the championship, he tried hard to hide his disappointment and instead praised his crew. He was still in the running for the championship, his car was still pretty fast, and he thought he had a good chance of making up for what he had done. But this attitude changed when his plans for 2022 didn't work out, and it looks like he started this year the same way. Leclerc only did one qualifying run in Q3 so that he could start the race on soft tires that were still new. He lost the lead by 0.3 of a second, and if he had run again in Q3, the gap would have been even smaller. He couldn't have beaten the Red Bulls though. The Ferrari was faster on the straight when their qualifying laps were compared. This showed that the team had made progress on making the car move faster by making it have less drag. But his second run showed nothing that made me think he might have been in the running for pole. Even though Ferrari isn't too far behind Red Bull on a single lap, it would be a stretch to say it is just as fast. So, Ferrari has some problems. Even if it was almost as fast in qualifying as Red Bull, it wasn't. Even when their tires were the same as Red Bull's, or when they had a small advantage, like brand new tires, the Ferrari was losing at least a half a second per lap. Since Red Bull was so fast during the race, it makes you wonder how much of the RB19's full potential was shown. But despite all of this, Marc Jean, the Ferrari test driver and brand ambassador, is confident that the different features of the Jeddah Street Circuit, which will host the second round of the 2023 Formula One Championship, should help the Maranello team get closer to rivals Red Bull in terms of race speed when Formula One goes to Saudi Arabia. After the winter preseason testing, it was clear that Red Bull was the strongest team going into the new season. However, the Italian team was expected to be much closer and challenge Red Bull for the Formula One titles in 2023. Unfortunately, the Shakir race was a disappointment for the Maranello team. Charles Leclerc had another problem with his power unit and had to pull over to the side of the track while in third place. His teammate, Carlos Sainz, had to settle for fourth place after Fernando Alonso passed him in his Aston Martin. On Sunday, when Ferrari wasn't even the second fastest car on the track, tire wear was a big problem for the SF23 car. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz couldn't match Red Bull's race pace at the Bahrain International Circuit, but Marc Jean is confident that the drinks-back team's dominance in the first round might not be repeated in Saudi Arabia. He says that the Scuderia Ferrari's perceived advantage on top-end speed could be a deciding factor at the Jeddah circuit. It could be quite track-dependent, Marc Jean replied when asked about the Red Bull dominance in Bahrain. Another strong point for Ferrari is we are very fast on straights. You could see we managed to defend from Aston and Mercedes. In the pace, Ferrari was very weak in that respect. For me, Jeddah is very important because it's a high-speed track. I think our cars could be very strong there. That's my personal feeling, the Ferrari brand ambassador added. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz were able to get closer to the Austrian team during qualifying at the Bahrain International Circuit. They finished third and fourth on the grid behind Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. But the Monaco driver chose not to do a final fast lap in Q3 in order to save a fresh set of tires for Sunday's race. He did this because, Just like in the second half of last season, the Maranello team is having problems with tires wearing out too quickly. Still, Mark Jean thinks Charles Leclerc could have taken the pole position if he had tried one more time in Q3. Jean thinks that despite the problems the team had in Bahrain, the Scuderia made some brave moves over the weekend. For example, Leclerc didn't do a second run in the last part of qualifying on Saturday so he could save some tires for the start of the race. "I think Ferrari have been brave today," Jean commented. "They even did a double pit stop, so I think Ferrari are being brave and creative." The fresh tire allowed Leclerc to overtake Checo and pull away from Checo. "So I think what Ferrari did was quite a brave move. Okay, the result doesn't show it, but I think up to the first pit stop, it was the right choice." During qualifying for Bahrain, Leclerc and Sainz lined up third and fourth on the grid behind the two Red Bulls, but neither driver did a second push lap during Q3, electing instead to conserve their tire usage for Sunday's race, prompting Jean to suggest that Leclerc had the pace to challenge for pole if he had chosen to do so. "In qualifying, we can beat Red Bull," said Jean. "I'm quite sure even Charles could have gotten pole in Bahrain, but the tire degradation is unbelievable, and I'm sure today they were managing it. We know they're hard to beat, but it's just started. It's only the first one of 23, so there's still a long way to go." Ferrari's raw speed didn't look as bad in Bahrain as the final results suggest, which is a good sign. As the new team boss, Frederick Vasseur, also pointed out, they were closer to Red Bull than expected in qualifying and clearly looked like the second best team. During the race, the gap between them and Max Verstappen only gotten bigger because the Bulls were able to use soft Pirelli tires for the second stage, while they were only able to use them for the first. The way Ferrari did in qualifying may show that it's not too bad, since it can quickly get the tires to the right temperature. This is an advantage in the short term, but in the long term, as we can see, it can be a disadvantage. The bad news for the Bulls is that in 2022, or at least the first half of that year, they had a clear advantage over Red Bull in this field. However, now they can only say that they were able to get close to Verstappen. They might not be able to get closer to Red Bull during qualifying in Jeddah because the asphalt is softer and the track is different, but their tires might last longer during the race. This will also help them at the Saudi Arabian track, which has a lot of fast straights, because they will be able to take advantage of the one area where they have improved a lot since 2022, top speed. Based on that data, this was done. The Scuderia's top speed increased by a lot, and the Q3 comparison showed that Leclerc was faster than Verstappen in the straight. This can be an advantage in Jeddah, especially on the long straights where the DRS zone is set up. However, they can only take advantage of all this if they are fast enough from the start and can handle their tires better than they could last week. Bahrain was a slap in the face for Ferrari, but after the Grand Prix in Saudi Arabia, we'll have a better idea of where the Italian team really stands. Obviously, they can't catch up to Red Bull, but compared to Aston Martin, who caused a stir in the first race of the season, it's possible that they'll do better than we thought last Sunday. What do you think? Can Ferrari come back to fight for the title, or will Red Bull be on the front foot for the entirety of this season? Let us know in the comment section down below, and see you next time.